Work in progress. Take one. I'm not gonna do that this whole time, I'm just gonna film. Today I found out I had less than 24 hours to enter a short film competition on TikTok where 3 winners would be flown out to attend the Cannes Film Festival in France. So naturally, I dropped everything I was planning on doing today in order to make this happen. I woke up around 8 o'clock in the morning and had no idea what I would make today. Within the first 2 hours, I wrote a script in bed and quickly headed to my studio with a bag of clothes for 4 characters and barely had any makeup designs drawn out for each of them. Most of the ideas were still in the works in my head, which I guess is very appropriate for the fact that this film is literally about a work in progress. The most important thing for me was to get started as soon as possible. I only had so many hours in a day and I knew my setup would be pretty simple, so I had to make sure I got it right. It would be comprised of 2 shots, one with the artist on one side who is trying to work through different iterations of an idea she wants to make for her art, and the second shot would be across from the artist where her ideas would come to life and have a conversation with her over tea to try to convince her that they are indeed the best idea. One of the trick parts of making films is getting the lighting and the angles correct, so that everything feels continuous and makes sense within the world.
You're just a half-baked idea. It can't just be about the visuals. How am I going to tie this into a deeper story?
You're just a half-baked idea. It can't just be about the visuals. How am I going to tie this into a deeper story? What I'm trying to create in this scene is the feeling of isolation in the artist's mind because she's essentially talking to herself the whole time. I had 2 lighting sets planned, and the first one would be very bright and it would suddenly darken into a very spotlight type of lighting. That actually made it very easy for me because I just needed a circle light angled above my head. But the difficult part was that my blackout curtains aren't super blackout after all because the edges don't cover the entirety of my windows and natural light was flooding in. So I had to wait until the sun set a little bit more to make sure that my scenes didn't have fluctuating light on the walls. Knowing that the only element that I had definitively decided on was to incorporate the color red, I wanted each character to have red in either their clothing or in the makeup, while the rest of the scene would be less vibrant. So the artist has a red beret and red lipstick, but is dressed in white, almost like a blank canvas. Then after filming all of her lines, I moved on to filming the bad idea because it would be the easiest one to make. Ironically, it was actually more difficult to come up with an idea that was bad because it goes against my very fiber of how I design. I just tried to make it look like it was scribbled and unfinished. The makeup process probably only took me about 5 minutes, and for the costume I decided to keep all the idea characters the same. And it's actually the same tube top that I wear for almost every single photo shoot that I do as a makeup artist for social media. That way I didn't have to think about the variations between the characters too much, and I could really focus on the makeup as the focal point of the story. I took a long time to make sure that the height of the table made sense in relation to the camera. I actually took the table from home and brought it all the way to the studio to make this scene because I actually didn't have a coffee table at all. So now I have this circle table, and it took a couple of tries to prop myself up on various pillows and blankets until I was able to get to a height level that made sense for both drawing realistically, but also positioning my camera to make it seem like my 2 characters were sitting across from each other, even though it wasn't actually filmed that way. I did quite a few test shots to see how far I would need to zoom in, and I wanted to see the notebook and a slight blurred peak of the tea set to add more depth of field. This would help the audience feel like they were watching the characters sit across from each other by how the notebook and the tea sets were positioned. Don't erase that. You might want to build on that one later. The third character is the half-baked idea, and this one is actually my favorite look besides the final idea. It didn't take me super long due to the fact that the surface area I designed was very small in comparison to what I normally do, like if it was a full face. I actually used lip liner for my waterline, which I'm not sure if you're supposed to really do, but I didn't have any red eyeliner, so I just used what I had on hand. It didn't burn, so I think I'm all good, but I wouldn't recommend using lip liner to draw your waterline at all. Now I'm getting to the point where I'm hungry and I've had to scrub my face clean for the second time, and I'm starting to think about why I decided to do everything in one day in the first place. Oh yeah, because I totally didn't know that this competition was happening until this morning. But I also couldn't decide if I wanted this makeup look to be the first or the half-baked idea. So I actually filmed myself doing the lines for both characters and made the decision at the end when I was editing on what I would be using this look for. Then I decided I would change up my hair a tiny bit by letting my ponytail down, just so that there would be a little bit more differentiation between the first and the second designs. What if we just added more contrast here and a little more texture? Moving on, I'm filming the first idea. This one actually took me so long to put on my face only because the powdering had to be done very carefully as to not smudge the design, and there was just so much powder that I had to constantly dip my head out of frame in order for me not to breathe in the particles flying around my face and, choke on the powder, which I've done before in the past, and it's not very fun. Other than that, I didn't want it to be too refined because it's supposed to be considered the first idea you think of as an artist. I wanted to keep it all red, but then I looked at how flat it looked without any sort of contouring, so I did end up adding some eyeshadows and various shades of red, so it wasn't as flat on camera. Although I'm not really sure if you could tell anyway since the lighting was so dark. I only realized while filming this scene how dark the lights actually were. I think I should have probably had the circle light facing me more instead of being right next to me because it casted very harsh shadows than what I was expecting, which proved to be very tedious to fix in post-production. Ooh, like a statue. Or ice, because you said frozen. Yeah, that's a good idea. Lastly, I had to film my final idea, and my neck and back are so sore from stress and concentration at this point of having to do everything consecutively with barely any breaks. I did stop to have dinner and hydrate, which is important for me to keep going because I wanted to not rush this process. It took me about 45 minutes to an hour to complete. At this point, I did feel more relaxed because my neighbors had finally gone to bed, and that means it was easier to film cleaner sound bites as opposed to in the beginning. I had to do a ton of different takes of the same lines because every other word was interrupted with a dog barking or a neighbor stomping around or cars honking in the distance. So small wins. All I had to do now was fight against my exhaustion since I had been working nonstop since 8 in the morning. I did end up playing with the costume part a little more because I wanted to show that this character was a fully thought out idea and let it stand out. So I added a ribbon around the neck and a big tulle jacket. Unfortunately, the character had the least number of lines even though I spent the longest on the makeup look, so I tried to deliver the lines a little slower to give more screen time.
I love it. I'm proud of you.
Then as soon as I was done with filming, I took some photos and went straight into editing even before taking off my makeup one last time. And I realized as soon as I started that I should have filmed some more extra content for social media, but at this point it is 1 in the morning and I was so ready to go to bed. Work in Progress, a short film by Cindy Chen featuring Cindy Chen Designs makeup, is now available to watch on my page. If you'd like to support me to win this TikTok short film competition, make sure to go to my TikTok page at Cindy Chen Designs, like, comment, share, and watch that video until the very end multiple times. Stay creative. Bye!